Hi guys, this is Jenna. Thanks for joining me and tuning in here. I've got this Star Wars scene that we're going to do today. May the 4th is coming up rather quickly. So I thought I would do a Star Wars one to kind of celebrate. If you don't already, please subscribe to our page. You can follow Artstitution on Facebook and Instagram. If you've never painted with us before, welcome. I have a tray of acrylic paints. These are these are filled pretty high. I doubt I'll use this much paint. I don't want to run out while I'm showing you guys how to do this, so I have it pretty filled. But if you guys, when you're painting, if you have paint left over in your egg carton, you can throw that in a Ziploc bag. It'll help it to last longer. Same with your plates. We're going to be mixing up a lot of paint on your plate, so if you have some left over and you don't have time to paint another one right after you do this one, you can put it in a Ziploc bag and that'll save it a little bit. So I've got some paper plates here to mix my colors. I have paper towels to dry my brushes, a water cup to clean my brushes, and I have three guys here. This big one we'll use to paint on the canvas. The tiny one we'll use later for little details. And this guy here, he likes to mix colors, so he's going to be our mixing brush. I'll use him to paint with as well. But when I talk about my my colors and my mixing, that middle one is going to be my scoop size. So when I say like 2 scoops, but you'll be able to see as we go. And also when you're rinsing off your brush, just make sure you dry it really good. The water stays kind of in between or in this metal piece. So when you go to paint, sometimes that water will drip out if you didn't dry your brush good enough. So just make sure you do that. And we will get started. This is going to be one that's a lot of back and forth. We need to build up these layers of color. Same with the water, to get it to have that, we're going to just bounce around with the colors a lot. So just stay with me. Lucky for you, you can pause and rewind if you need to. I'll try to show you how I got this done. And you'll have a fun Star Wars painting. Here we go, I guess. Alright, so here's what I've got here. We're going to mix up a few different yellows into the orange, into the red, into the purple, into the blues. This blue color here, that's the water, I also have in the sky. These sky colors I have in the water, so you're going to mix up a good amount of them so that you don't run out. And I'll show you how we're going to kind of build that up here. So I'm going to do kind of like a half a scoop of white on my plate. That'll be for my yellow. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 2 scoops of yellow for that guy. And then I'm going to do another one. So another scoop of of white. I'm going to do 2 scoops of yellow for this guy. This guy's going to have a little bit of red in there. So I'm going to mix that up. And I'm going to mix this, the one that I added red to, I'm going to mix that guy first, because the red and the orangey that's left over on this brush, I'm going to then add to that brush, to that pile. So I'm going to wipe this off here as best I can. And I'm keeping the paint in a pile just so it doesn't dry out and get soaked into the plate. So then the orange that I have kind of left over on that brush, I'm just mixing into this yellow so that it's not like a crayon bright yellow. It still has kind of that tinge of marigold that this one has here. Alright, so I've got my yellow, got my medium orangey yellow. Now I'm going to make a orange. So I'm going to do a little scoop of yellow here. I'm going to do kind of like a half a scoop, full scoop of red. I'm going to add a little more yellow to that guy. The red's pretty overpowering, so you can also do your scoops of yellow and then add little bits of red to it. I think I added a little too much to begin with, but alright, so there's your orange. So we're making a rainbow here. Next thing we're going to do is the red. Now I'm not rinsing my brush, I'm keeping this on there. I'm going to do almost a full scoop, that was a lot, sorry, got kind of goppy. Scoop of red. I'm going to add a little bit of blue, like the tiniest bit of blue. So it almost has like a purple tinge to it, but it'll make it like a darker red. You can also do that by adding green. So you can kind of play with your colors if you want to a little bit, but I like it, the little purpley tone to it. Okay, so now you've got your red. So now we're going to go into your purples. Now I have a light purple and a dark purple. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the dark purple first. So I'm going to do a scoop of red and a scoop of blue. And you'll see as I'm doing that, I'm not rinsing my brush off. Just try to scoop the side of your paint so that you don't mix your colors and rub through the whole egg carton. You know, the color that you have in your egg carton. Alright, so I have this dark purple. So now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little bit of this, move it off to the side. I'm going to scoop of white, add it into this guy. Again, try to keep them as in a pile so that your paint doesn't get soaked into your plate there. Alright, and then from here, I'm going to add the white that's from this brush, like from this, mixing this, into my darker purple, just to give it a little creaminess so that it's not so shiny purple. Just lightens it a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to go into my blues. So because, look at that rainbowy plate, because I have this purple on my brush, I'm going to do my dark blue first. So this dark blue here. Now the blues we need a lot of. So the blues I'm going to mix up some big piles of. So let's do this. Let's do your dark blue. I'm going to do almost 3 scoops of blue. And then I'm going to add little bits of black at a time. So like tiny, just touch the tip of your brush to it. Don't worry about the purple that's on your brush. It's not going to really do much to this blue. Okay, I'm going to add a little more black. With the black, just keep adding a little bit at a time. Until it's as dark as you want it to be. I think I have a little bit of green. Got a little bit of green in there too, so it had kind of like a turquoise dark blue. Yep, I did. Okay. So kind of do like a half a scoop of green in here. I think I'm going to do a little more black. If your color does get too black right away, you can scoop some of that off to the side and add more blue to it. Alright, so there's my dark blue. So now I'm going to work my way down. So this middle blue is what you're going to use for the water. So that's going to be your middle blue here. I'm going to put it right in the middle. So I'm going to do 2 scoops of white, not quite a half a scoop of blue. Mix that guy up, and then we'll kind of add to it from there. Alright, so I think that's the color that I want. So now I'm just going to keep adding little bits to it. So I'm going to do a scoop and a half of blue. Nope, of white, sorry. And then a tiny touch more blue. Let's do a little bit of blue. I want it to be a little darker. Have fun with this mixing part too. I love mixing colors. It's fun sometimes to just, I don't know, I like to mix up the colors and kind of just paint with them to see what I come up with. Not having any kind of plan, just to see what they mix into is kind of fun. A little more blue here. A little bit more blue, and just do it until you're happy with your color. Your color doesn't have to match my color too, by the way. I mean, you totally can if you needed to, but all right, I think that's good. So now we're going to mix a light blue, and this light blue we're kind of just going to add up top. So some of this blue that you use for your water, still on your brush, just scoop a little bit of white, a little bit of blue. Another scoop of white here. Okay, so now I think we're good with our colors. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our yellows. Look at that plate. Woo! Alright, we're going to start with our yellows. So you need to rinse this brush off really good. I'm going to paint the first piece with my big brush, and then we're going to come back a few more times to do these little pieces. So it's going to take a little while before it looks like this, kind of like the Van Gogh brush stroke. Is what we're going for, but we're going to have to build up to that. So first I'm going to use my big brush. So your mixing brush you can just rinse off and leave in your water cup, and then we can go right to that later. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. I'm going to start with my lightest yellow and kind of picture the mountain, like horizon line here. We're going to paint over it in black anyway, so just kind of picture where you're going to have it. Now, if this is my like middle dot, kind of have it a little lower than halfway. So just start your yellow in here. Add a little white so it's got an extra little glow to it. And then I'm going to go straight into my next color, which is that marigold, and I'm going to brush that into the yellow, and you're not going to see much of this. So this is kind of just like an underneath, like a wash before we build up on all these colors. So almost try to think of it like this is just an underneath, like first coat. We're going to come back and add to it. So try not to make this part your, like you love this, so you're not going to touch that because we're going to add stuff to it later. So you're just building up the colors for right now. So don't worry about it too much. And then I'm going to go in with my orange. I have it kind of swirling up to this side and swirling up to this side. So think about that too as you're going. the red, I'm not going to do yet because the red we're adding kind of to the top pieces. So you don't need to do the red yet. So now we're going to go into the blue. We're going to kind of work our way up, and the purple, kind of work our way up that way. So be careful when you do this part. Purple into orange might make kind of a brown, so be careful how much you mix into that. I'm going to do my lighter purple first and just kind of brush in a little bit. Try not to do too much. You don't want it to turn into brown. If it does turn into brown, let it dry. You can come back later and add stuff on top of it. Also, if you need to, you can wipe your brush off so that your orange and your purple, all that doesn't really mix into anything or mix into another color. Let's do a little bit of this purple. So this is my dark purple here. Okay, now I'm going to slowly add my blues. Now I'm not going to really do my light blue right now. That's just going to be for on top. So between my dark blue, my light blue, and my purples, here's where you're starting. Now I'm going to go into my dark blue in here because I want to add my light blue on top. And see, I'm not using a lot of paint. I'm just kind of brushing that like a dry brush almost. So now I'm going to go into my middle blue. And don't worry about this green that's happening here because we're going to come back with any of those, some of those brush strokes that'll cover that up. Okay, so keep working your light blue, your middle blue. And then I'm going to go back to my dark blue. If you want to, you can go around and paint your edges as you're going up with your colors. Try to keep this part as thin as you can. It's almost like brush the paint out just so you have like a see-through kind of coating, because this is just your underneath layer. We're going to build up on the colors more as we go. Okay. Whoops, see how it kind of turns into like a brown color? Don't worry about that right now. We'll come back to it. Alright, so here's what you've got so far. So it almost just looks like a rainbow mixture of a sky here. This is just to give us kind of a base coat. So now we're going to do the water. Keep in mind your black is going to kind of go over this. So I'm going to do this from like here down. I'm going to do all of that blue. I'm going to do that with my medium, my middle blue. I'm just going to paint this guy in. Keep it thin. It might be kind of see-through for now, but we can come back to it. Your blue you can paint up to your yellow. Just be careful not to mix into your yellow too much because it'll make it into the green. But I'm going to go all the way to the edge, but I'm not going to worry about that white because it's going to be black anyway. So just paint up almost to your sky color. And you can keep it thin. Don't worry too much because we're going to keep adding, building up these colors. Okay, step one. There you go. Now we're going to start to slowly build up on these colors, but your sky is going to be wet right now, so let it dry a little bit before you go on with the colors. As we build them up, it's going to start to be kind of thicker paint. if the paint is still really wet, you don't want to rub and brush over top of it because it's just going to wipe the color off. So keep that in mind as you're going, trying to do this. I'm kind of going fast so that I can show you all in one sitting here. So here's what we got for now. Sorry, I'm just adding some of this blue to some of this canvas that's empty. So now your big brush, probably not going to use again, so that you can put in your water cup. And we'll make sure our middle brush is washed and dried really good. Now we're going to start to build up on these colors. So your like horizon line here, we're going to do like a first layer of these sketchy pieces, and then we'll come down and do some of the water, and we'll come back up and do some more of these sketchy pieces. So don't try to do it all in one spot right now. Build up on these, like some of these pieces, like just this tiny little spot has dark blue, light blue, medium blue, purple, yellow, orange, red. It has all of it in here, but they're just mixed together because I kind of just kept going back and forth to your pieces. So here's what you're going to do. While this is drying, we're going to do some of the sky. I'm going to do just a scoop of white on my plate just so I have some clean white. I'm going to start to do where like the sun is going down. So I'm going to brush in some white. And I'm using this brush. You can use your little brush if you want to. It's kind of just up to you. But I'm using this, and I'm using like the corner of it and just brushing in some white. And then I'm going to start to build up my yellow. So I'm going to brush some of that yellow into that white. And then I'm going to go into my middle yellow. And you can create kind of like stripy pieces in where your sun's going down. Just be careful. If you do too much orange right away, just let it dry. You can go back in with your yellow. So now my medium, that middle orange, I'm going to start to kind of stripe it. And I'm saying stripe it, but like this is what I mean. Like stripy brush stroke pieces. So it has that like hazy kind of line look. So you're going to brush in some of this orange into your yellow. And you can have this be as bright as you want it. It's totally up to you. Okay. And then I'm going to work my way out with this orangey color. And I'm going to start to, like I wanted this to be kind of blended and clear. So now I'm going to start to build up and create some of these like brush strokey pieces. Now it's going to look weird for a little while. Just trust me, it'll be okay later, I promise. So I'm going to do some of this orange. I'm going to put some up here on this blue. Then I'm going to go into my red. You don't need a lot on your brush. I'm kind of just tapping the paint, the paintbrush into the paint. You don't need a lot. Don't think you need to scoop up a big pile because it's harder to control when you have more on your brush. Okay, now I'm going to go into my purple. I'm going to wipe some of my paint off here. And I'm going to go in with my darker purple. And you're just stroking in some of those pieces. purple. And this almost just kind of gives another little cloudy touch. This gives it like a gray. All right. Now with the blues, let's see, I'm going to start with my darker blue. And just kind of brush in. I have my brush kind of flat now, I'm doing bigger pieces with this dark blue. And just leave some spaces kind of in and around. And that we're going to come back in with your lighter blue. I have this top piece pretty dark, so that I'm just going to brush some dark over. But you're just bouncing around with your colors. Okay, so now from the dark blue, I'm going to go into my medium blue, and that blue, you can kind of, as you're brushing over top, you can kind of blend those together. So like you can leave some of the dark blue, but as you're going over with the light blue, it almost creates another color blue. And just keep brushing those in. You don't need a lot of paint for this one either. And don't worry if it gets too light blue, we can go back over top. So now with this medium blue, go this way. Little pieces, just kind of brush them in. And I'm going to work my way down to my other colors. Now some of those might be dry by now, so it's not really going to blend into. You're almost going to like paint on top of, but that's okay because this is only, you know, we're still going to go back with some of those other colors. All right. So now you can go into kind of where your purples are, not to cover those up too much, but just to kind of blend in and add some of this blue in there. Oop, that's a lot. See, like this purple here is dry already, so the blue is just kind of painting over top of some of those spots. That's okay. Don't worry if you cover it up, because we can go back. You can add more layers to it. Now, when you're going over this orange, I'm kind of going over it like in between some of these colors, so you can still see the red, you can still see some of the orange, but you're just adding some of this blue into it. And I've got little brush strokes for this part. And just be careful as you get down to this yellow, because you don't want to cover it up and make the yellow into the blue. It's going to be harder to get rid of if you don't like it. So just do little pieces. Okay. go in with my yellow, original yellow. I'm going to add some of these yellow pieces up top here. While this blue is still kind of wet, because you can blend it into your blue. Not too much that it makes like a green, but at least it'll give it, you can still kind of brush in that yellow to give it another color. Okay, just to brighten it a little bit in the middle here. And just be careful, as you keep going over and over and over, if it's wet, it'll create like a muddy color. So just be careful as you're brushing over top. You don't want to overdo it with these colors. Okay? So now that you've brightened up the middle with that yellow, kind of look around and see, like, I know I want this to be darker. I might even, I'm going to scoop some of this blue off to the side. You can add another little bit of black to make another darker blue color here. But it's up to you kind of how dark you want your colors or light you want your colors. But after you have your original piece down, like I noticed that this is a bit lighter than I want it to be. I want it to be a little darker. You can kind of add, I'm going to add another color. Same thing with your purples, your oranges. Ooh, that's really dark. So this now I'm going to brush in a little bit, just to make it a little darker up here. And then I'm going to go back with my other blues, just to blend it in a little. Alright, so I'm going to go back with my darker blue, brush some in there. Okay. Now my middle blue. And this you can, I mean, it's hard. I tend to overstar things and I like little pieces of things, so it's hard for me to stop. But have your sky, you know, keep building up your sky as much as you want to. Keep in mind your Death Star is going to be, excuse me, kind of a gray. So try not to make this too dark. Excuse me, so that this kind of doesn't get lost in that spot. So if you do darken up your sky, keep that in mind, that you want to leave this a little bit lighter so that your gray, you know, you can still kind of see it through. Okay. Alright, so now this is all I'm going to do for now. I'll come back in a little bit to, let's see what we can do here. I'm going to do the mountains, the land part here, because we're going to have to build that up a little bit. So this is not finished. This is just another layer of it. So don't think that you need to finish this sky right now. We're going to do a little bit down here. While this dries, we'll come back and do a little more up here, okay? So now for the land, I'm going to mix up, we're going to do a dark gray. I know that there's blue mixed in with that. I'm not really worried about it. So I'm going to do a little scoop of white. I'm going to do 3 to 4 scoops of black. We're doing this gray that's almost like a dark charcoaly gray. I come back later, I add black over top of it just to kind of darken up some of those lighter spots. So for this, I'm going to do this dark gray, and I'm going to, here's my small brush. I want this part to be thin. So I'm going to do that with my tiny brush so it doesn't get too thick right away. And you're going to just paint over where you left that white line so that it meets up to the sky here. And then I'm going to start to build in my mountains. Don't worry if if some of your sky color is still wet and it blends into it, we're going to do a few different layers anyway, so don't worry about that. So now from here, this line kind of goes down, so I'm going to create that now. This line goes down, so I'm going to create that now too. Don't worry about it being straight, it can be a little bumpy, it's kind of totally up to you. And then when we're doing the mountains, what I like to do is I like to use the corner of my brushes. That'll create those like points. Oops. Paint it thin because we need to paint some of these light pieces on top of it too. So don't do a big chunk of this gray color. And then I just kind of wiggle my hand to create kind of those bumpy pieces. And again, paint it thin so that we can come back later. Alright, let's see, got another one here. Another little one here. Okay, now while your black is wet, we're going to drag this color down into your water. So you don't need a lot, I mean I'm not dipping back into my paint. The paint that you have up here, you're brushing down into your water. And that's going to create this underneath part. Now it's going to take off the paint from the mountains. Don't worry about that. We can go over that. But this, you're just kind of dry brushing down into your water. It's creating kind of our first like water reflection kind of look here. Don't put more paint on your brush. Use the paint that's up in your mountains and drag it down into the blue. I don't want it to be too dark. Okay. Alright. So now just go back over your mountains. Down into like where those brush strokes were. And that's the part, so like this outline, I'll call it, that's going to be black. So we're going to darken that later. So for now, don't really worry about that. And then I have this black down here, the land part. We'll do that later. You don't need to do that now. We're going to let that, we're going to build up on some of your water in a little bit. So after we do the water, we're going to do that line. We'll come back and do that. So rinse off your brush, make sure you got all the black out of it. And we're going to go back up to do, actually no, I'm sorry, I lied. We're going to do some of this darker blue. Oh no, stripes down. We're going to do reflection pieces here. Now this is going to get covered up, kind of, with your blue. So I'm using my tiny brush and I'm going to go in and follow kind of the lines of where the background is. So dipping into your color and kind of wiping it off a little bit. These strokes are going to go down. Now be careful of your black because you don't want to pull that into it. So don't go up all the way. And this, I'm just going to dry brush, not a lot of paint, just dry brushing in some of these reflective kind of colors here. Where else did I develop? Here a little bit. Okay, some of that middle orangey kind of color. here, and then did purple. Now it's gonna look weird. We're going back over with the blue, so just do this for right now and it'll go away. This is just giving another kind of layer of a glare of the water. The red we do later. Okay. Alright, so now what I want you to do is that medium color, that medium blue that was the original water color. We're going to start to stroke in kind of like wave pieces this way. Sorry, we should have started with the yellow. So these are like reflective lines. You're covering up what you just painted. And it's going to kind of smear a little bit. That's okay. And I'm not going over all of it, just some of it, just to kind of cross over top. Okay? Now, my dark blue. I'm going to do some of those pieces down here. Not a lot of paint on my brush. And I'm not really going into the black with the dark blue. Just kind of going over maybe some of the edges. And now go over again. Dip into that medium blue. And as you're going over it, it's going to kind of blend and give you that like water stripey kind of texture. It's almost giving you a whole nother blue kind of color. Okay, now this chunk here, that gave me a lot of purple, and right now it's not really blending in. I'm going to leave it. We'll come back, we can add more blue to it. Like right now it's just blending into the purple. So I'm going to leave that for now. We'll come back. Okay, again, this is not finished. We're coming back down. And we're going to go back up and work a little bit in the sky. So now kind of just see your colors, and you'll know where you want to add some too. And then we're going to add this light blue kind of in the center to brighten it up here. So for me, I'm going to add more of my red. Not a lot. I'm just going to do little bits at a time because I don't want it to get too dark. And now some of these pieces might be your top layer, and you're like almost, done with your sky, done top layer. So keep that in mind as you're going. You want to do kind of thin little strokes. Well, at least that's what I'm going for. If you're going for something else, go for it. And then just kind of work your way around. So see, like I'm going to add more of this blue over here to blend into that red I just did. So just keep adding your colors, and see, it made another purple, which is fine. Ooh, me. Add some more of this blue. Don't go too crazy. I know it's hard to not want to like brush big strokes so that it finishes. Do little bits at a time. Ooh, there's purple on my brush. I'm going to do some of my lighter purple. Not a lot. Just a few little pieces. I'm not rinsing my brush off in between. If you need to, for your soul, if you need to rinse your brush off, you can. I've just been using my paper towel and kind of wiping off the colors. I'm going to go in now with my dark blue. Back to my medium. Like if you're like just then, my dark blue just got a little too patchy and like overwhelming. So I went back in with my lighter blue just to kind of soften it a little bit. Okay, I think that's good for now for my sky. I think I'm gonna go in with my lightest blue, and then you're just I'm gonna start from on this side, and you're brushing over and just kind of brightening up like this center piece here. And if it's not, if you want it to create more of a blendy, like if it's just painting over the colors that you have, you can go back and add more of the darker paints so that when you paint over with this color, it kind of blends in a little bit more. It doesn't just paint right on top of it. You'll see as you're going. If you don't like what's happening, just change it up a little bit. I don't have this lightest blue too much up in the sky, maybe just a little in the corner. Okay. Alright, I think that's good. So my sky color I think is pretty much done. Sorry, I'm cleaning off my middle brush. I'm gonna go back now. Like if there's any spots, like this blue got a little mixed into my yellow, I'm gonna go back in with my yellow just to cover that up a little bit, just so it's not so shockingly blue. Same with the red. I'm gonna go over with this middle orange just to soften it just a little bit. Okay. Alright, I think my sky is done. Alright, so now, splatter painting. We're going to do the stars and then we'll come down and work on some of the water reflections. To splatter paint, I'm just going to use some of this white. So I did like a half, not even quite a half scoop of white, the littlest bit. And I'm going to dip my medium brush in my water cup and I'm going to add that water to the white. Don't worry if it turns out to be a little gray. It'll be fine on the canvas. Okay, so you're just making it a little bit thinner. And now I like to use a bigger brush to be my tap. If you have a flat spot, you could put the canvas flat. When you go to splatter paint, it's easier to do down like this on the tabletop. I'm going to show you up on my easel, obviously, so you can see. But what you're going to do is tap into your paint, and then just test it. You know, I'm doing it on the tablecloth. You don't need to do that if you don't. I mean, you can do it onto your plate, but so that all the bigger blobs come off, and then you're gonna just hit your brush with paint into your other brush to create your splatter. Now, when you go in for more paint, make sure you dab off. You don't want to have any of those big blobs come off on your painting. Okay, and do as many splatter stars as you want. I think that's good for me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the back of my brush just to give a few more bigger star pieces. So that the splatter, you know, you still have the splatter pieces, but there's a few that are brighter. Almost like the stars are kind of going off in the distance. Okay. So I think that's good. For now. Alright, so now the water reflection, some of my splatter got down there, so I'm just going to blend them in here. Alright. Hang on here. Some of my splatter turned to gray. Alright, so for this water reflection, with your tiny brush, we're going to add some of these pieces that go left to right. So I'm going to start with my yellow, and I'm going to brush in just little brush strokes. You don't need a lot of paint. This is just going to be kind of your water reflection pieces. I'm going to go in with my orange. And we're going to do the same thing we did with the sky. So, like, I'm going in with these colors, and then I'm going to come back with my water to blend then the blue into these colors. Hope that makes sense. Do you? So see, just little dabs, little brush stroke pieces here, and then I'm going to go in with my middle, my blue, and then you can just kind of like lighten those up so you can go in between those brush strokes to blur them into the water. Be careful with the blue, with the orange. You don't want to make brown. Well, I don't want to. If you want to make brown, go for it, but I don't. So the blue just kind of softens those colors, and then it creates another color, which then creates another kind of ripply water effect. So you can see that. Okay. And now some of these pieces, you can go back and add that lighter watercolor to it if it got too dark anywhere. Also, in reverse, if any of it's too light and you want it to be darker, you can go in with your darker blue and add more of that darker blue color Okay. Alright, so now I think that my water is done. I want my yellow to be a little darker though. Hold on. I'm going to do a little more yellow in here. Okay. Now it's done. Alright, so now let's do the mountains. I have, it almost looks like there's like buildings with lights in the mountains here. That's what I was going for. So with my, I think I did my medium yellow. So with my medium yellow and my water blue color, I'm just going to add some brush strokes. So like, almost like dots, I guess you could kind of figure it that way. Just do little, kind of in a line. You can do some on top and just kind of stagger them. Once you do your orange, you're going to go back in with your light blue, so your water blue color. And those, same thing, just kind of stagger them in between. Same over here. Stagger them up top here too. And then when you come back, we're going to come back in with your lighter gray. And that's going to cover your lights. So now the color that you use for your mountain, which was that almost, we mixed the white with black, your dark gray, that you're going to brush over top. So with your mountains, and almost in just like stripe pieces, you're going to brush over top of all those colors that you just did. And you can fill in, if any of your mountain is like see-through, you can do that too. So you're just brushing over, not all of it, just kind of almost like you're making like a fence. So just some stripes over top of those colors that you just did. Don't worry right now, the colors are kind of blended into. Can you see that? Looks kind of weird. Don't worry. So these colors that blended, we're going to come back later with a darker black, and that'll cover it. For now, I see a few pieces on my mountain that got splatter painted. Just cover those guys up. If any of your mountain is, you know, it had some of that see-through look where you could see your sky, you can go over that now too. Okay, there's some splatters over here. Alright, so now we're going to go into your Death Star. This guy. We're going to make a light gray. That light gray, you can take some of your mountain color, just move it off to the side. Add a scoop of white. So you're going for almost like a middle gray. So this middle gray you're going to paint the shape of, and then we're going to add some of this darker gray that you used for the mountain. You're going to add that into it and make that circle part up top too. So we're not making a full circle. So you're going to do this almost like a C, and I'm going to just do that for now. And then what I do is I'm brushing to create this jagged broken edge. I'm going to just stroke that as I go down. Almost like you're making, looks like a weird flying saucer here. Okay? and then paint in with this gray. Okay, so now this jagged edge part, go in with your dark color, the color that we used for your mountain, and I'm going to start to do cross hatching. So some down pieces and then some left to right pieces, and you're just going to start to create that broken edge part with this darker tone. And then I'm going to brush some up to the side to create a darker piece up here. Brush it into your gray, it'll kind of blend it. Sorry, that part was not rounded. Keep brushing it. So left to right pieces, up and down pieces, almost like you're making like a basket with these brush stroke pieces, like a basket weave. Okay. Then I have the top, I have some of this darker piece. Oops. This darker gray too. Alright, and then this part, this eyeball part, I'm going to do that hole. I'm going to create with the darker gray. You're going to make like a circle piece. Get a little bigger here. After that circle, I'm going to go back in with white, and I'm going to outline the side. So if you start on this side, and then you're going to do like the left corner. Now I know a circle doesn't have a corner, but think of it like a square where I'm doing this like left corner piece with this white, just giving it like a highlight. And then with the white, I'm going to come around. I'm going to brighten up some of this jagged edge part. Same thing with the cross hatches. And hopefully you're mixing it into this gray. If it just is painting over top, you can add a little gray to it to make it a little bit lighter. Let's see, down here I can add a little bit of white. Same thing, keep those cross hatch pieces. I'm going to go back with my darker color to create this split of a line. And you can have that curve a little bit. So it doesn't have to be straight on the circle. You can kind of curve it so that it matches, gives it a little 3D. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to brush over with some of this white on top of that dark gray piece that we just did, just to create a little highlight on my shadow. Oh, I erased it. Okay, so you've got a dark, here let me make it darker so you guys can see. So I've got that lighter highlight line on top. A lighter line on top of it, just kind of highlighting it. And now if your grays, it's like I want to make this a little lighter, maybe in here make a little lighter, just keep adding that same texture, the like cross hatches. Lighten up some of this top here, lighten up some of this middle. So then after you go in with your white, you can come back in with your original gray if you wanted to darken up any of those pieces that you just went over with white, just to give it a little darker piece. So it's just kind of going back and forth and building up on those shadow pieces, okay? I think it needs to be, this guy needs to be a little bigger. Alright, Death Star is complete. You can go back into with black if you want to make it way darker. Here, I'll show you. So dip into your black, and like some of these edges, if you wanted to make them like darker than your the darkest gray that you did, you can do that. Just to give it a more three-dimensional, like darker effect to it. You can brush in some strokes over here. Just depends how detailed you want to get. Okay. Alright, so now let's see with my, we've got to do the TIE Fighter and the X-Wing, but go back down to your water. I rinsed off my little brush, and what I want you to do, we're going to go over now in black. So you're going to, we're going to outline the like horizon of the water, or the land, whichever you want to say. So this piece here, you're going to darken, make darker, and then those strokes, brush over those lights that you did with this darker color. You can brush some of this up to your mountain if you want to. This is just going to give it more of a shadow kind of look. But you're brushing over those lights that you did. Not completely. Okay. Follow your way around with this black. Now I'm not doing the whole, I'm not painting the mountains in with this. I'm going around the edge of the water, and then I'm brushing up over those lights that we did just a little bit, and then brushing some of this black up into the mountains just to give it another little, not with a lot of paint, still kind of like a dry brush, brushing up into the mountains just to create another little kind of shadow piece. Okay, so now there's highlights in the water, almost like the lights were reflecting down into the water. Now with that, I did that middle yellow, and I just did kind of little, like we did for the reflections for the waters over here, little pieces just like that. And I did that middle yellow, and then I did the darker blue. So just do a little bit with that middle yellow. And then wipe your brush off, and then go in with your darker blue and just add some of that in there too. Okay, just to give a little highlight color there, little water reflection, light reflection in the water. Oops, cover that. That was an accident. Okay, now let's see, we've got this bottom land piece. Let's make that gray. So this, I kind of created like a circle-y piece. So I angled out the corner here, and then I made almost like there was like another land piece over here too. So you're just brushing in that bottom over the water. And you can, same thing, you can kind of dry brush if you want to create like a blurry line on the edges. Okay? So now the water part is done. Now we've got some TIE fighters and an X-wing. So here's what we're gonna do. These guys, we're gonna use that same dark gray, and it's up to you how you make them. I kind of created it like the TIE fighters were chasing the X-wing. I'm gonna do the X-wing first. So we're gonna create, I'm gonna do this circle. Let's see, kind of do it up here. I'm gonna do the circle first. Make it a little bigger so you can see. I'm gonna do the circle first. Whoop, careful if you stamp like I just did on my mountains. You don't want to stamp it in the sky. And then I'm gonna do, you're creating an X, but I'm gonna do like a V on each side. So then from this guy here and this guy here. And then there's little pieces on the ends of each. And also I did little half circles on the outsides. So the top pieces are on the top here, the bottom ones are underneath. Okay. X-wing done. So now for the TIE fighters, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do a circle. So let's see, I'm gonna have this guy over here. Circle in the center, and then I pinch my brush so that I have a thin like razor piece, because I want these lines to be thin coming off of the circle. So brush a line, draw a line through there. Sorry, my circle got a little wonky. And then you just have two lines on the edge here. One's kind of big. I'm going to make my circle a little bit bigger. Okay. TIE Fighter 1 done. Next one, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. At least that was the goal for the first one. Okay. Oh, and then lines through. And then those lines down. Just go slow when you're doing it, okay? Alright, and now I think we're good. Make sure I have everything before okay, so now what I would do is you can kind of work your way around if you needed to. Like I could point out some of those edge pieces. When you're doing those lines, use your pinky. So kind of go all the way down to the tip of your brush. Use your pinky kind of like a kickstand. It'll help stabilize your hand a little bit better. But I think that's all. I think she's done. Hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. I think that's everything. Yeah. Okay. All right. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this Star Wars celebration. I'd like to see your finished pieces. If you do this, and if you follow us on Facebook, post your or send us your pictures so we can see, because I'd love to see what you guys come up with. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. That would be really great. And I hope you have a wonderful May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And have a great day, guys. I hope you guys are all right out there. Take care.